I want to take you to a very specific moment in time. It's 1980.
Okay.
You're sitting in a dark theater, the smell of popcorn is in the air, and you are watching The Empire Strikes Back.
The classic.
We are deep, deep in the bowels of Cloud City. It's humid, it's industrial, and it is terrifying.
Yeah, you can almost feel the steam.
Exactly. Luke Skywalker has just been completely beaten. He is clinging to this gantry over a literal infinite drop.
His hand is gone.
His hand has just been severed. He is battered, bruised, completely desperate. And above him, this dark silhouette of Darth Vader.
It's the ultimate cinematic nightmare. The villain has totally and completely won.
He's won, and in this moment of just total defeat, Vader delivers the line that changes cinema history.
The one.
It's the line that is like etched into the DNA of pop culture.
Yeah.
I want you to say it with me. I want everyone listening, in their cars or at the gym to say it out loud. Vader reaches out his hand and he says,
Luke, I am your father.
Luke, I am your father. It is iconic.
It's everything.
It's on t-shirts. It's in The Simpsons. It's the line we use to mock our friends when they discover some big secret. And it is arguably the most famous misquote in all of human history.
Because, as you know, and I suspect a lot of our listeners are probably screaming at their devices right now, he never says that.
He never says Luke.
No, not at all. If you actually go back to the source material, if you pull it up on Disney Plus Ez, or you dig out your old VHS tape, or find the original script, the dialogue is different.
It's so different. Luke screams, "He told me you killed him."
And Vader replies simply, "No, I am your father."
No, I am your father. And it's a subtle difference.
Well, it is.
It's just one little word.
Yeah.
But when you hear the real version, it feels wrong.
It feels off.
Yeah, it feels offbeat. Luke, I am your father, has this rhythm to it. It have that personalized address.
Right, it's a direct confrontation.
No, I am your father feels almost, too conversational for a Sith Lord.
And that feeling of wrongness you're describing, that is exactly why we're here today. We are not just doing, a trivia deep dive about movie quotes. We are talking about why millions of people who have seen that movie 50 times, will look you straight in the eye and swear on their life that Vader said Luke.
It's the confidence that gets me. It's not a guess. It's not, oh, I think it was.
No, it's a memory.
It is a vivid, engraved memory.
Precisely. We are diving deep into the phenomenon known as the Mandela Effect, but we're going to go a lot deeper than the usual internet lists of examples.
Okay.
We're going to look at the actual architecture of the human mind. We're going to explore why your brain is quite literally designed to lie to you, and why you are biologically programmed to believe that lie.
We're going to talk about the elephant in the rider, which is a concept that I have to say completely changed how I view my own decision-making.
It's a game changer.
We're going to look at how the internet acts as a hallucination amplifier. And we're going to ask that big question. If I can't trust my memory of Star Wars, can I really trust my memory of anything?
It's such a slippery slope, because once you start pulling at this one little thread, reality starts to unravel just a little bit.
So let's ground this whole thing before we all flow away. For anyone who's uninitiated, let's define the Mandela Effect properly. It didn't start with Star Wars.
No?
It started with the man himself, Nelson Mandela.
Right. For this, we have to go back to 2009. There was a paranormal consultant, of all things, named Fiona Broome,
Okay.
and she was attending a sci-fi and fantasy convention, DragonCon, I believe it was, and she finds herself in a conversation with other attendees about the 1980s, and the topic of South Africa came up.
And specifically the death of Nelson Mandela.
Exactly. Broome had this very specific, very vivid memory of Nelson Mandela dying in prison during the 1980s.
Not just that he died, right? She remembered details.
Oh, incredible detail. She remembered the news coverage. She remembered seeing the riots in the streets of Soweto on TV. She specifically remembered a televised funeral and a heartfelt, weeping speech by his widow, Winnie Mandela.
See, that's the detail that makes the hair on my arm stand up.
Right.
It wasn't just, oh, I haven't heard from him in a while, so he must be dead. She had visual data stored in her brain. She had an entire narrative.
A complete story with an emotional core. But, as we all know, Nelson Mandela did not die in the 1980s.
Not even close.
He was released from Victor Verster prison in 1990. He went on to win the Nobel Peace Prize. He became the first Black president of South Africa.
And he didn't pass away until December 2013.
Right. So Broome is standing there at this convention having this very sudden, very public realization that her memory is factually impossible. But here is the kicker.
She wasn't the only one.
That's the effect part of the Mandela effect. She started asking around, hey, do you remember Mandela dying in the 80s? And person after person said, yes, I remember the funeral. I remember that speech.
So you have a large group of totally unconnected people who all share the exact same false memory.
And Broom coined the term the Mandela Effect. And once she put that name to it, the internet did what the internet does.
It exploded.
It went wild. People started realizing that their memories of childhood books, of cartoons, of brand logos, they just didn't match reality.
It really became a cultural phenomenon.
It did. And typically when we talk about this, people tend to fall into two camps.
Okay.
There's the camp of the fun, who just, they love the trivia.
They just think it's neat.
Yeah, and then there's the camp of the fringe. These are the people who believe this is actual evidence of alternate reality.
The multiverse theory. The idea that we, slid from a timeline where Mandela died in the 80s into this one.
Yeah, that's the one. We will touch on that, mostly to debunk it.
Yeah.
But the third camp, the one we are setting up our tent in today, is the camp of neuroscience. Because the reality of what is happening in your temporal lobe is actually much, much stranger than a multiverse.
I love that. The truth is weirder than fiction.
Mm.
So, okay, let's walk through the glitch in the matrix.
Let's do it.
We have to establish the baseline of insanity before we can try to explain it. I want to start with the visual ones.
Yeah.
Because these are the ones that make me feel like I'm actually losing my mind.
The visual ones are so powerful because we trust our eyes more than anything, right? Seeing is believing.
Exactly. So let's talk about the Monopoly Man.
Rich Uncle Pennybags.
Rich Uncle Pennybags. If I asked you to draw him right now, listener, just visualize him. He's running, or he's leaning on a cane. He's got the top hat.
Yep.
He's got the white mustache. And what is on his face?
Well, if you ask 1,000 people, I'd bet 700 of them, at least, will say, a monocle.
A monocle. Of course he has a monocle. He's a plutocrat. He's a robber baron from the turn of the century. He needs a monocle to look down on us poor people while he collects rent on Boardwalk.
It makes perfect narrative sense. It fits the character design completely.
Yeah.
But looking at the entire history of Parker Brothers and Hasbro, Rich Uncle Pennybags has never, in any official iteration, ever worn a monocle.
I refuse to accept this. I can see it. I can see him adjusting it. I can see it popping out of his eye when he has to go to jail.
You are seeing a memory that doesn't actually exist. Now, why? This is where we need to introduce the concept of schema.
Schema. Okay, break that down for us.
A schema is like a mental blueprint. Or think of it like a file folder in your brain.
Okay.
Your brain is an efficiency machine. It does not want to remember every single specific pixel of every image it ever sees. That takes up way too much energy. So it groups things into categories. You have a schema for dog, a schema for car, and in this case, a schema for rich Victorian banker.
Okay, so I open my mental rich Victorian banker file folder. What's inside?
Top hats, tails coats, canes, and monocles. It's a key part of the archetype. Think about Mr. Peanut.
Mr. Peanut, the Planters mascot.
Mr. Peanut definitely has a monocle. He fits that exact same visual archetype. He's distinct. He's everywhere.
So my brain is confusing the two.
What researchers like Dr. Wilma Bainbridge from the University of Chicago suggest is that our brains are conflating them. You see the Monopoly Man, your brain accesses the rich banker schema to store the memory, and it essentially auto-corrects the image to include the monocle because that's what should be there.
So my brain is using Photoshop without my permission.
That's a great way to put it. It's filling in the gaps. Your brain is a prediction engine. It sees the pattern. He's rich, he's old, he's fancy, and it predicts the next part of the pattern. He must have a monocle. So it just inserts it to complete the picture.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's still so unsettling. It means we aren't really seeing the world. We're seeing our expectations of the world.
We are seeing what we expect to see.
Okay, let's do another one. Pokemon. Pikachu.
The most recognizable character on Earth, arguably. More than Mickey Mouse, maybe?
Right. Yellow electric mouse.
Mm-hmm.
Red cheeks. Pointy ears. Lightning bolt tail. Describe the tail.
Okay, well, most people, if you ask them, will visualize a yellow tail with a black zigzag stripe at the very tip.
Yes. A black tip on the tail. It matches the black tips on his ears. It's just a good design choice, right? It balances the character.
Except it doesn't exist.
Come on.
Pikachu's tail is solid yellow. Now, there is a little brown patch at the base where it connects to his body, but the tip, pure, solid yellow.
I have drawn this character. My kids have drawn this character. I swear I have colored in that black tip with a crayon.
And this is very likely another schema issue. You correctly remember the black tips on his ears.
Yes.
Your brain, which is always seeking symmetry and pattern continuation, assumes that the other pointy extremity, the tail, must also have a black tip. It's like dragging the texture from the ears and just mapping it onto the tail to complete the pattern.
It's lazy rendering. My brain is lazy rendering reality to save RAM.
That is actually a very, very accurate metaphor for what's happening.
Okay, here's the one that just destroys me.
Yeah.
This is the boss level of visual Mandela effects for me.
I think I know where you're going.
Fruit of the Loom.
The underwear company. Yes.
The logo. I stared at this logo every single day of my childhood while I was folding laundry. It's a pile of fruit. You have an apple, you have purple grapes, green grapes, some leaves.
A classic image.
And behind the fruit.
Yeah.
What is behind the fruit?
Go on.
There's a cornucopia, a horn of plenty, a brown woven wicker basket that curves up and around the fruit.
Ask anyone from the 70s, 80s, or 90s, and they will describe the weave of that basket. They will describe how the grapes spilled out of the mouth of the horn.
I literally learned the word cornucopia because of that logo. I asked my mom, what is that basket thing on my underwear? And she said, it's a cornucopia. That's a core memory for me.
And here's the problem. Fruit of the Loom has never used a cornucopia in its logo.
That's impossible.
We checked the trademark registry, we looked at the company archives going all the way back to its founding. It has always been just a pile of fruit with no background.
But that doesn't make any sense. A cornucopia isn't a schema for fruit in a modern context. Maybe a Thanksgiving, sure. But why would a 7-year-old kid in, 1988 invent a specific woven brown basket? That's not a generic fruit association like a bowl is.
This is the hardest one for skeptics to explain away. It really is. The leading theory is still association ichthys. Cornucopias are the ubiquitous symbol of plenty involving fruit, usually seen in autumn art or, like you said, Thanksgiving.
Right.
But the specificity of the memory, the fact that so many people remember learning the word from that logo, suggests something deeper about how childhood memories are encoded. We attach language to images. If you learned the word cornucopia around the same time you were constantly seeing a pile of fruit on your clothes, your brain might have just fused the two concepts together permanently.
It's gaslighting. I feel gaslit by the entire universe.
It's a common feeling.
Okay, one more quick visual one before we move on. Curious George.
The little monkey.
The operative word being monkey. Does he have a tail?
He does not.
He's a monkey. He swings from trees. He hangs by his tail. That's what monkeys do.
Well, in the books and the cartoons, he uses his hands and feet. He has no tail.
Yeah, but monkeys have tails. Apes don't have tails. Is George secretly an ape?
Technically, biologically, if he has no tail, he's an ape or a chimp, yes. But the books specifically call him a little monkey. So again, your brain hears monkey, it opens the monkey schema file, sees has a tail, and it just pastes one onto George's butt.
So we are just constantly correcting the world to fit our biology textbooks.
In a way, yes. We're making it make sense.
All right, let's move to the verbal ones, the spelling ones. These are the ones that cause actual fights at the dinner table. The bears. The family of bears from the books.
The Berenstain Bears.
Stop it. Just stop. It's Berenstein. Berenstain. Like Frankenstein. Like Einstein.
I know it feels that way, but it's spelled Gerenstein, Berenstain, pronounced Berenstain.
Berenstain sounds ridiculous. Nobody says, honey, read me the Berenstain Bears book. It feels so clunky in the mouth.
And this is a classic example of what you could call a linguistic bias. Think about surnames in English, specifically Jewish or German surnames. How many end in Einstein?
A lot. Goldstein, Bernstein, Weinstein, Einstein.
Right. Now, how many can you think of that end in Winstein?
I can't think of a single one.
Exactly. It's incredibly rare. So when you're a kid or even a parent reading the book quickly, your eyes scan the word Bernst, and your brain just auto-completes the rest of it based on the most common statistical probability. You literally stop reading the word because you assume you already know how it ends.
We are just skimming our way through life.
We are incredibly efficient skimmers. The same thing happens with Looney Tunes.
Looney Tunes, the cartoon. T-O-N-S tunes.
D-U-N-E-S tunes.
But why? That makes absolutely no sense. They are cartoons. It's in the name.
But if you look at the history, Warner Brothers started their animation division specifically to promote their massive music library.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They had two competing series, Merry Melodies, which makes perfect sense melodically, and Looney Tunes. They were literally musical shorts.
Okay, historically that checks out. But visually, seeing tunes on the title card just looks completely wrong.
It creates a kind of cognitive dissonance. Your brain says cartoons, so it expects to see tunes, but the historical fact remains.
Let's do a rapid-fire round on some of these verbal ones, because I want to see how many I get wrong. I'm feeling weirdly confident.
All right, let's do it. The evil queen in Snow White. What does she say to the mirror?
Easy. Mirror, mirror on the wall.
Magic mirror on the wall.
Oh, no. Mirror, mirror has the alliteration. It's more poetic. It sounds better.
It does sound better, but it's not the line. Next one. Silence of the Lambs. Hannibal Lecter meets Clarice for the first time.
Hello, Clarice. Chillin'.
He says, "Good morning."
Right.
He never once says, "Hello, Clarice," in the whole film.
That one I just can't. Okay. Field of Dreams. The voice in the cornfield. If you build it, they will come.
Close. If you build it, he will come. He? Who is he? That makes no sense.
His father.
Yeah.
The entire movie is about him reconciling with his dead father. They refers to the baseball players who do come later on, but the initial prophetic voice is talking specifically about the father. But they will come is the catchphrase. We use it in business all the time.
Yeah.
If we build this app, they will come.
And that's the key right there. The collective memory edits the quote to make it more useful. If you build it, he will come is too specific to the movie's plot.
Right.
If you build it, they will come is a universal proverb. We, as a culture, optimize the quote for social sharing.
We are literally memifying reality as it happens.
You really are.
Okay, we have to talk about the big one. The one that actually has people claiming the government is erasing history.
Oh, yeah.
The movie Shazam.
This is the holy grail of Mandela effects, the final boss.
Ask any 90s kid. There was a movie, it was a comedy. It starred the comedian Sinbad.
Sinbad, yep.
He played a genie. He had the gold hoop earrings, a purple vest, the curly shoes. He helped two kids whose parents were getting a divorce. I can see the poster in the Blockbuster video rental store. I can see the clamshell case.
I have some really bad news for you.
Don't say it.
The movie Shazam starring Sinbad does not exist. It was never made.
It's impossible. It's just impossible. I remember the plot. I remember the cover art. So many people remember it.
This is where the brain's ability to conflate goes into absolute overdrive. We can actually reverse engineer this false memory piece by piece.
Okay, let's try.
Ingredient number 1, Shaq.
Shaquille O'Neal.
In 1996, Shaq starred in a movie called Kazam. He played a genie.
Okay, so Kazam and Shazam. Very similar names.
Yeah.
Same concept.
Ingredient number 2, Sinbad. In the 90s, he was everywhere. He was in First Kid, Jingle All the Way, and he was in a movie called House Guest. Look up the poster for House Guest.
I think I know it.
It shows Sinbad popping out of a mailbox, arms crossed, with this very magical and mischievous look on his face.
It looks like a genie pose. It really does.
It's a genie pose. Ingredient number 3. Sinbad once hosted a movie marathon on the TNT network where he dressed up as a genie for the entire programming block.
Ah, there it is.
So your brain takes 90s black comedian, genie movie, Shaq Sinbad confusion, and the name Kazam, and it puts them all in a blender and bakes a cake called Shazam. It feels incredibly real because all the ingredients are real. The final product, though, is a hallucination.
It's a collage,
Yeah.
memory collage. But
Yeah.
why do we all have the same collage? That's what drives people to the multiverse theory.
Let's address that head on. The internet loves the idea that, CERN turned on the Large Hadron Collider and accidentally shifted all of us into a parallel dimension where Sinbad isn't a genie.
It's a fun theory. We are in the darkest timeline. I get the appeal.
It makes for great sci-fi, but as a scientific theory, it's completely unfalsifiable. You can't prove it and you can't disprove it. And honestly, relying on magic physics kind of lets us off the hook.
What do you mean?
It ignores the much more uncomfortable and I think fascinating truth. Our brains are deeply flawed recorders.
So let's get into that uncomfortable truth. We've done the what. Now let's do the why. You mentioned the word confabulation earlier. That sounds like a very technical term for just lying.
Well, in psychology, we often call it honest lying. Confabulation is when a person spontaneously generates a false memory to fill a gap in their personal narrative.
But they're not trying to deceive you.
Not at all. They aren't malicious. They
No.
truly 100% believe the memory is accurate.
And we usually associate this with things like brain damage, right? Alzheimer's, dementia.
Historically, yes, that's where it was first studied. But modern research, specifically on memory reconsolidation, shows that healthy brains do this all the time, just on a smaller scale. We have this profound misconception that memory is a video file. That when I remember my 10th birthday, I go to the hard drive in my brain, I click on birthday.mp4, and I watch it.
That is exactly how it feels.
But that's not the mechanism at all. Memory is reconstructive. Think of it more like a Lego castle.
Yeah.
Every time you remember an event, you aren't just looking at the finished castle, you are smashing the castle to pieces, and then you're rebuilding it from scratch using the Lego bricks available to you right now in this moment.
And if I have a new brick, say a piece of information someone told me yesterday, I might accidentally build that new brick into the old castle without realizing it.
Exactly. Every single time you recall a memory, you are rewriting it. You are saving over the old file with a new, slightly altered version. This is why eyewitness testimony is so notoriously unreliable.
There was that famous study about this, right? The car crash study.
Elizabeth Loftus. This is foundational work in the field. She showed participants a video of a car accident, just a standard fender bender, nothing too dramatic. Then she asked them questions about what they saw.
Like, how fast were the cars going?
Right. But she subtly changed the wording. To one group, she asked, "Did you see a broken headlight?" And most people correctly said no because there wasn't one in the video.
Okay.
To the other group, she asked, "Did you see the broken headlight?"
The broken headlight.
The word "the" implies existence. It plants a suggestion. It tells the brain, there was a broken headlight, and you missed it. The brain panics. It doesn't want to be wrong, so it goes, "Oh, right, of course, the headlight. Yes, I saw it. It was shattered on the left side."
So it just hallucinates the broken glass to please the questioner.
It creates a visual overlay to resolve the conflict. If a single word can make you see broken glass that wasn't there, just imagine what 30 years of pop culture references, parodies, and jokes do to a line like, "Luke, I am your father."
It's terrifying. We're constantly editing our own Wikipedia pages without even looking at the edit history.
Which brings us to the real core of this deep dive, the architecture of the mind itself. We found some incredible sources from psychologists like William Barry and Jonathan Haidt that provide a fantastic framework for this. They call it the elephant and the rider.
I love this metaphor. I really do. It explains so much about why I do stupid things I know I shouldn't do. So break it down.
Okay, so imagine a human rider sitting on top of a massive, massive elephant.
Got it. Big elephant, small person.
The elephant represents the automatic, ancient parts of your brain. The limbic system, the amygdala. It controls your gut feelings, your emotions, your fight or flight response. It's huge, it's powerful, and it has been evolving for millions and millions of years.
So the elephant wants to eat cake, sleep in, and run away from tigers. Basic survival stuff.
Exactly. It seeks pleasure and it avoids pain. It is, above all else, an energy conservation machine.
And the rider. Who's the rider?
The rider is your prefrontal cortex, the newest, most modern part of the brain. This is your conscious, logical self, the part of you that does math, that plans for the future, that worries about retirement.
Okay, so the rider is holding the reins. So the rider is in charge, right?
That is the grand illusion. We think the rider is in charge because the rider is the one doing all the talking. It's the voice in our head. But Jonathan Haidt's key insight, and this is so crucial, is that the rider is small and weak compared to the elephant. The rider is not the king. The rider is an advisor, maybe a press secretary.
So if the elephant wants to go left towards the donut and the rider wants to go right towards the gem?
The elephant is going left, and the rider is going to be dragged along for the ride. But here's the really scary part. The rider won't scream, "Help! I'm being kidnapped by an emotional elephant."
What will the rider say?
The rider will immediately say, "You know what? I'm going left because I really deserve a treat today. I worked hard yesterday. It's actually a strategic decision to eat this donut for morale."
Oh my God. The rider's a spin doctor. It's a public relations agent for the elephant.
100%. Mark Manson has another great metaphor for this. He calls our minds the consciousness car. We think we're driving, but really, we are feeling brain-piloted meat robots. The logical brain, the rider, evolved to serve the emotional brain, the elephant, to justify its impulses after the fact.
Okay, so how does this connect back to the Mandela Effect?
Think about the Monopoly man again. Your elephant, the fast, pattern-matching, lazy, efficient part of your brain, sees a rich banker. It instantly says monocle because that fits the pattern. It's a snap judgment. It's easy.
Yeah, right.
The writer could step in and say, "Wait a minute, let's be rational. Let's check the source material. Let's Google it." But the writer's lazy too. It wants the easy answer. So the writer just says, "Yes, absolutely, a monocle. I remember it vividly." The writer rationalizes the elephant's snap judgment and calls it a memory.
Is there actual proof of this? That the writer just makes stuff up to justify what the elephant has already decided?
There is a famous experiment mentioned in our sources involving scrambled sentences. This one just blew my mind when I first read about it.
Let's hear it.
So, researchers brought people into a room and gave them a simple word puzzle. They just had to unscramble some sentences.
Simple enough.
But there was a trick. Group A was given sentences that were filled with rude words. Bother, disturb, intrude, brazen.
Okay.
Group B was given sentences with polite words. Respect, yield, patient, courteous.
So it's subliminal messaging, priming.
Exactly, it's priming the elephant. After they finished the puzzle, they were told to go down the hall and tell the lead researcher they were done. But when they got to the researcher, he was standing in the middle of a conversation with another person. He was deliberately ignoring them.
So the test isn't the puzzle at all. The test is, do you interrupt him?
That's the real test. And the results were just staggering. The people who unscrambled the rude words, they interrupted the researcher almost immediately, within a minute or two, on average.
And the polite group?
The people who unscrambled the polite words waited. Some of them waited for 10 full minutes until the experiment was just cut off. They just stood there patiently.
Wow, so just reading the word yield made them physically yield in a social situation.
It primed the elephant to act a certain way, but here is the writer part. When they asked the interrupters afterwards, "Why did you interrupt?" Not a single one of them said, "Oh, I think it's because I read the word disturb 5 times."
Of course not. So what did they say?
They invented logical reasons. They said, "I have a busy schedule," or "That guy was being really unprofessional, making me wait," or "I didn't want to miss my bus." They created a perfectly rational, logical reason for a behavior that was entirely programmed by a word puzzle they did 10 minutes earlier.
That is profound. It means our reasons for doing things are often just post hoc justifications for our unconscious programming.
And that is the Mandela Effect in a nutshell. Why do I remember a cornucopia? The writer says, because I saw it, I have a clear memory. The elephant doesn't say anything. The elephant just knows that the neural pathway connecting fruit plus Thanksgiving plus plenty to cornucopia is really strong and efficient.
Yeah, and then you add the modern internet to this already messy mix. Because in, say, 1985, if I thought Mandela had died, I'd tell you you'd correct me, and that would probably be the end of it.
Right. The feedback loop was small. But today we have the echo chamber.
We have a source here about a huge Twitter study involving false news.
A massive study out of MIT. It was incredible. It found that false news spreads 70% faster and deeper on Twitter than the truth does.
70%.
Yeah.
Why? Is the truth just boring?
The truth is often messy, it's nuanced, it's complicated. Falsehoods like Sinbad made a secret genie movie are novel. They're clean, they're surprising, they appeal directly to the elephant's desire for a good, simple story.
And then you get social reinforcement on top of that.
This is absolutely crucial. If you go on Reddit and post, "Hey, does anyone else remember the movie Shazam?" and 500 people reply, "Yes, I saw it at my friend's birthday party," that external validation hardens the concrete of your false memory.
The tribe agrees.
Your brain says, well, the tribe agrees with me, so it must be true. My memory is correct. It creates this powerful feedback loop.
Yeah.
And now, with things like deepfakes and Photoshop,
That's the next frontier of this, isn't it?
it really is. You can go on Google Images right now and find a perfectly convincing Photoshop of the Fruit of the Loom logo with a cornucopia on it. Once your eyes see that image, your brain reconsolidates your memory with that new high-res fake. It overwrites the original fuzzy data with this new, false, concrete evidence.
We are literally polluting our own hard drives with bad data.
We are, and that's why this matters so much. It's funny, when it's about peanut butter brands or cartoon bears, it becomes incredibly dangerous when it's about politics or crime or history.
Right. If we can collectively hallucinate a movie, can we collectively hallucinate a crime that never happened? Or a political promise that was never actually made?
We absolutely can, and we do, all the time.
Okay, I am sufficiently freaked out now. I feel like a feeling brain-piloted meat robot, and I'm just drifting in a sea of lies my own mind is telling me.
Yeah.
We need to give the listener a lifeline here. How do we fix this? Can we even fix this?
We can't fix our basic biology. We're always going to have an elephant. It's part of the system.
Yeah.
But we can train the writer to be a little smarter, a little more skeptical.
Okay, how? How do we train the writer?
First, we need to understand something called the default mode network. This is the state your brain enters when you aren't focused on a specific task. When you're driving home on a route you know by heart, or washing the dishes, or in the shower.
The daydreaming state.
Right. And in this state, the elephant is driving the car. This is when you find yourself mindlessly eating chips you didn't mean to eat, or ruminating on an argument you had 3 years ago.
Or remembering the Monopoly man with a perfect clear monocle.
Exactly. So the first and maybe most powerful solution is mindfulness. And I don't mean that in a mystical way, just lighting incense. I mean metacognition, the practice of thinking about your thinking.
Robert Wright discusses this in our sources. He talks about viewing your feelings mindfully from a distance so you can choose whether to act on them or not.
That's the key. The goal isn't to stop the elephant from having thoughts or feelings. That's impossible. It's to notice the elephant. If you are sitting in meditation or even just sitting at your desk and your mind wanders off to a distraction, noticing that your mind wandered is the exercise. That's the bicep curl for your brain.
So catching yourself isn't a failure, it's the win.
It is the entire point, yes. Every time you say, oh, look, my brain is trying to make me anxious about that email again, you are stepping out of the default mode network. You are putting the writer back in the saddle, even just for a moment.
Another strategy from our sources was questioning your thoughts. This comes from William Barry.
This is the mantra I really want listeners to try and adopt. Just repeat this phrase to yourself. This is just a thought, not a truth.
This is just a thought, not a truth. I like that.
Just because your brain says he hates me or I remember that event perfectly clearly doesn't make it objective reality. It's just the elephant offering a suggestion based on its programming. You can learn to look at the thought, examine it, and say, thanks for the suggestion, elephant, but I'm going to check the facts on this one.
That requires a lot of humility. It's hard to admit you might be wrong.
It does. Which leads to the third point. Dr. Julia Shaw talks about the liberation of doubt. We are so obsessed with being right all the time. I know it was Berenstain. Why? Why does it matter so much?
Because being wrong feels like a threat to our identity.
To the elephant, yes, it feels like a status threat. But if you can learn to embrace the fact that your memory is flawed, that you are a messy, reconstructive storyteller by nature, it's actually incredibly freeing.
How so?
You don't have to defend every single memory as if it's a court transcript. You can be curious instead. Huh, I misremembered that. I wonder why. What schema was my brain using there?
It turns being wrong into being interesting.
Exactly. It allows you to navigate the world with a little less ego and a lot more accuracy.
So let's bring this all home. We started this deep dive with a missing monocle on a board game character. We traveled through the valleys of false memories. We stopped at the Shazam video store that doesn't actually exist. And we ended up dissecting the fundamental neurology of the human brain.
It's been quite a journey.
The big takeaway for me is that the Mandela Effect isn't a glitch in the universe.
No.
It's not a bug. It's a feature of the software.
It's a feature of a highly efficient, socially driven, pattern-seeking brain. We are hardwired to prioritize fitting in and saving energy over being 100% factually accurate all the time.
And just knowing that, just being aware of it, makes us better pilots of our own consciousness cars.
It does. And I want to leave our listener with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Lay it on us.
We've spent this whole time laughing about movie quotes and cartoons, and those are low stakes. It's fun. But I want you to take a moment and look at your own life. The facts that you hold on to as absolute truths. That grudge you're still holding against your sister because you remember exactly what she said at Christmas 5 years ago. That core belief that you aren't a math person because of one bad test in 4th grade. That certainty that your boss is out to get you.
Oof, that's getting personal.
Ask yourself, are those objective truths recorded like a video camera? Or is that just the Monopoly man's monocle? Is that just your elephant filling in the gaps with a story that protects your ego or confirms your biases?
That is heavy, but it's so necessary. I'll challenge everyone listening. Catch your elephant in the act this week. The next time you are absolutely 100% certain you are right about something, just take a beat, Google it. Or just ask yourself, is this a thought or is this a truth?
Question everything, especially your own mind.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you in the next reality.
Assuming this one is actually real.
Don't even start. We'll see you next time.